Nature can be a caring and nourishing energy. Recognizing that nature can be there to sustain me, because it is. Through the elements and through everything that happens in nature, we can survive as humans. Nature supports human life. But at the same time, we have to be open to understand that nature is kind of like the grandmother that collects everything on her heart. So it will give you the best and the most nutritious meal to calm your soul, but in return, it asks you to care for her. But the idea is to come into this understanding that we are not separate from nature, because in reality, we are nature in itself. We are nature in and out.
What really gives weight to one's purpose or vocation is when it somehow contributes to people around you, whether that's your community or whether even the world. If you're helping people out, when you have a platform online, you certainly can reach all parts of the world.
I am a mestiza, meaning that I carry two different lineages, maybe more. That taught me to be able to hold complexity, the complexity of my truth, the complexity of who I am. Living between worlds allowed me to kind of push myself to claim the wisdom that was almost buried. It supported me to get all this process of falling in love again with who I am.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Dreamcatcher podcast, a place where your dreams can find a voice. I'm your host, Celine Shenoy. Thank you to all of you who return every week to tune in to become a better version of yourself. Make sure you hit subscribe if you haven't already. And please rate our show if you enjoyed this episode. Do you feel cut off from your family's story and heritage? Unsure of where you belong? Today's guest, Lorena Saavedra Smith, offers a grounded path back home. She transformed intergenerational pain into practical wisdom. Lorena will show how to reconnect with your roots through nature, reciprocity, and everyday rituals based on Andean teachings on living well that calm anxiety and shame. Lorena Saavedra Smith is a Pacha philosopher and ecopsychologist. Originally from Peru and replanted to the United States, Lorena is a lifelong storyteller and keeper of Andean ancestral wisdom and medicine. With more than 2 decades of experience in the wellness industry, Lorena draws on a multidisciplinary background to help others find healing through inner wisdom and the healing powers of nature. Tune in to learn more about how to meet fear with steady presence and weave your dreams with your deep roots. You will walk away with clear language for your story, nature-based practices you can try today, and a kinder way to hold yourself, your family, and your future. Lorena, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Oh my gosh, I am so excited to be with you. Thank you so much for making this a space, and I welcome you also to my home here in the little corner where magic happens.
Oh, thank you so much, and I'm so happy to have you on the show. I have been dreaming of visiting Peru for years. It's just that I have been fascinated with the history, the wisdom, and everything about Mesoamerica. I mean, I've just been drawn to that for the longest time, and the culture of the country seems so rich and beautiful. And I'm happy to say that I'm actually planning on going there next year to see everything firsthand.
Ooh, that's awesome. Well, let me know. Maybe we go together.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'd be the perfect companion.
Yeah, I will show you around. Yeah, that would be. I mean, I'm happy that the part of the world is calling you. So I know you will have a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. And more specifically, Machu Picchu, because that place
Mm.
looks magical. And it's on my bucket list. It's way up there. Okay, so Lorena, I think you are the perfect person to talk to about the topic that we're going to discuss today because you are a native voice and a trusted guide in Andean ancestral wisdom and traditional medicine. And you actually have a very interesting story. You moved from Peru to the United States and you identify with both indigenous and mestiza heritage. So, why don't
Mhm.
we start by you telling us about how your background influence your perspective on life and even the way you approach healing?
Yeah, so I am a mestiza, so meaning that I carry two different lineages, maybe more. And that taught me to be able to hold complexity, the complexity of my truth, the complexity of who I am. Um, that also, I was able to understand that I don't belong only to one world, that I carry many worlds within me. And the indigenous portion of my mestiza lineage is what informed me on how to do this healing process, on how to adjust into the collective and move from the idea of being one individual in this world. It informed how to embody this body and also inform how to be connected with nature. So, and I'm talking, I'm sure that this is the voice of many of us who happen to have a indigenous and other lineages within us. It's like the living between worlds allow me to kind of push myself to claim the wisdom that was almost buried. And it support me to get all this process of, I say, falling in love again with who I am.
Oh, that's beautiful. And I mean, it's so evident that maintaining a connection to your heritage is very important to you and is a big part of your story.
Yeah, well, it didn't start that way. It didn't. For many years after I moved to the US, I did not want to be identified as Latina, as Peruvian, as Andean person. I avoided to even be around people who happen to have my same identity. I didn't want that because I now understand that it was my way of trying to not to be discriminated, not and also to try to fit in into this new culture that I was adapting to.
That's interesting. I can identify with that because, my roots are Indian, and quite often that wasn't very well received everywhere I went. And it's almost like when people found out that I am of Indian origin, they were surprised. They were like, "Oh, you don't sound Indian, you don't look Indian." I mean, so it was almost like they felt like it was a good thing that I did not look very Indian or sound very Indian. And that is something that I had to wrap my head around and be like, why? Why
Mhm.
is that the case? And
Yeah.
so I can identify with your how you felt as well, where you were trying to separate yourself from that identity because you felt that perhaps that would not get any social approval.
Yeah, and during those years, I remember that it was so hard because I was honestly living in two different worlds. I say two different worlds, but it was more worlds that I can count and remember too, because I needed, and it was so exhausting,
Hmm.
right? Because I had to create a persona for different stages in my life,
I so get
right?
that.
So,
Mm.
can you feel?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and I know that I am not speaking only. This is not just my truth, right? It's and for that, whoever is listening to this, and I'm carrying you with me right now because I know the feeling. I know the feeling, and I know it's possible to reconcile with it too. But to your question, it was hard. It was hard. And then when I discovered that my way of sovereignty was going to be through my own lineage and through my own culture, I say, well, let's do it, because I was getting the results. They were immediately. They were like, yeah. So I really feel that is through our cultural traditions, and for I call this the spiritual DNA, from our spiritual DNA, that we can really find some solace on the soul.
Mm. What advice do you have for people who feel like they have to reconcile, their complex heritage, or they feel like they don't connect with a specific place? How can they begin to figure out where they belong and find that sense of rootedness that you were able to later on in your life?
The work that I do is very, I'm talking from, I'm gonna do it from a place of telling a story. I think it's better to represent it in that way, because this type of work cannot follow in a structure, right? Because we all have our unique ways of doing things, and even if we belong to a particular lineage, um, our own little community, including our own family, have their own ways to do and address life.
Mm-hmm.
So this type of work is very individual, yet the end result is the collective wellness, right? So the reason I decided to embrace into this journey, because I knew that something was missing, something was not clicking. And how did I find out that I cannot belong somewhere? Although I have all this complexity of places and lineages, what I felt more rooted, using the word, was through nature. When I understood that I am as valuable as a mountain, I am as sacred as the water of the rivers, how could I say that I don't belong? That's impossible. Now, that sounds a very romanticized idea. But that's how the shift start happening, at least for me, and for the people that I support and I accompany their process. That's how we start this process too, right? So in reconciling with their own places that they have some kind of connection already. For people who happen to migrate from different places where, for example, the mountains carry significant value emotionally, spiritually, and so on. So I moved them through that. So, well, let's connect with the mountain first before you go into any further. So yeah, I found belonging, a belonging that is very sustainable to me through nature.
Yeah, that is a huge component in your new book, Awaken Your Roots. You do talk about how nature is so healing and how you developed a partnership with nature. And unfortunately, a lot of people feel disconnected from nature nowadays, or they tend to fear it, because you did talk about how we use the metaphor of the tiger chase, right? Like
Mhm.
we respond through fight, flight, or freeze. And that's the only way that we can connect with creatures like that. We're fearful of them. So tell us about how we can get away from that fear first lens and move towards building a more loving and meaningful relationship with nature.
Well, and thank you for framing that question in that direction, because we tend to romanticize nature.
Mm.
And we also have to be aware that nature can be a caring and nourishing energy, like the sweet winds. But at the same time, nature can be a force that can destroy, like hurricanes. So that's the first step. No, don't romanticize nature. Don't play. I remember my grandma used to say, we live closer to the ocean in Peru. And I remember grandma always saying, do not play with the ocean. Do not tempt the ocean. And that got like carved from my brain and my mind and also my heart. But the first step is to recognize that nature in itself, Earth, the planet, is thousands of years old and significant, and we are in comparison very small as we talk about the human life that we know of. So being aware of that is, to me, feels it's like a work in progress too. Recognizing that nature can be there to sustain me, because it is, right? So through the elements and through everything that happens in nature, we can survive as humans. So nature supports human life. But at the same time, we have to be very open to understand that nature is kind of like the grandmother that collects everything on her heart, right? So it will give you the best and the most nutritious meal to calm your soul. But in return, it asks you to care for her. So we have to, and I don't want to say we have to, but the idea is to come into this understanding that we are not separate from nature. So we kind of have to, the invitation is to care for it, to be one with it, because in reality, we are nature in itself. We are nature in and out.
I love that. So having a healthy respect for Mother Nature and developing that consciousness that, we are one with nature. I mean, we are part of it. We represent it. So in terms of everyday life, what does that look like? What can we do to connect and feel closer to the world around us?
And again, this type of work can be very individualized, right? Because I cannot help somebody who is not who doesn't have a good relationship with the wind or with the fire to go and attempt to connect with the fire. So what I'm saying right now, I want listeners to understand that you have to do your own reconciliation process with the elements of nature to see what element you can start connecting with more in a deeper level. But there are a few things that you can do that they are kind of universal in terms of connecting with nature. And the first one is just connecting with your wind. I call it a wind, is with your breath. Just taking a deep breath and noticing what type of wind are you receiving, right? Sometimes we can feel the sweetness of the wind, the dryness of the wind. From where I come from, and under the Pacha philosophy, it says that the wind is the one who carries the good and the not so good. It carries life and also carries suffering and death. So just being aware of the quality of the wind, that would be one thing. In other words, if you put that in a different, in the other side of the spectrum, is just being conscious about your breath.
Mm-hmm.
And another way you can do that is by walking mindfully or walking very conscientiously with I learned this from one of my elders. And to me, after I learned that lesson, my walking became a ritual, because it was like every time that you walk, especially in the forest, if you're taking a walk in a park or somewhere where there is a body of water or something like that, every time that you walk, you are awakening the spirits that live in the underworld. And for us in the Pacha philosophy, the ones that live in the underworld are our ancestors. So every time that I walk, I'm saying hello and asking for my ancestors to wake up to be with me. So that's another way to be in contact with nature.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's wonderful. I mean, we could definitely try all of that. And what I'm hearing is there's also a more structured approach to healing based on the elements of nature that you feel you probably need to work on more. Well, you mentioned fire, earth, water, and air.
And wind, yes, or
And
air.
wind. Yeah, and wind. Okay. And I know you go into details about that in your book. So a term that you used, and it's a Quechua term, it's called Sumak Kawsay. I hope I'm saying that correctly.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah.
Thank you. And it literally means good living. So can you expand on this Andean philosophy on living in harmony and how it can help us do that in our life?
Yeah, when I actually recuperate the wisdom, I was in the middle of writing the book. And without even knowing that I was kind of sort of practicing that. But one of my teachers or my maestros deep in the wood, in the woods, in the mountains in Peru mentioned it. Like, you need to start doing the Sumak Kawsay. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? So he went through details because although Sumak Kawsay is a framework that is shared in the Andean philosophy, it doesn't belong to one region specifically. Considering that the Andean territory expands to different countries, the countries that we know as countries now. So each community, each territory follows a more abroad way of practicing Sumak Kawsay, which in translation is el buen vivir, or living well. And basically, I mean, and it's a huge philosophy behind it. It's a way of living, a way of connecting with body and nature, body and spirit, body and energy, and so on. But the two main components of that will be our relationship with nature and reciprocity, the reciprocity that we hold to each other, to our environment, to the people that is nearby, to even to the things that sometimes we don't pay much attention to, like material things, right? So my relationship with this plant or my relationship with this lamp. So all of that becomes a way of well living, becomes a way of me taking my place in this ecosystem or this cycle of life that is Sumak Kawsay. And so, and it shows you, and it kind of tells you there are 15 or 16 ways of like pointers. And again, this varies depending of in what territory you are applying this concept. But it basically tells you how to eat, how to celebrate, how to cry, and how to grieve, how to approach life, how to be in community, how to be by yourself. So it have many different components of that. How do you live?
So it's like a guidebook. It's like a guidebook.
Yeah, you could say that is a guideline of how to approach life. And the main component here is that we humans are we are in reciprocity with nature. So Andean philosophy have many goals, if anything, but the one that is one and above is how me human can be at service of the natural world, and how I can create this reciprocity cycle between it.
Thank you for explaining that. And actually that whole idea of reciprocity and giving back to nature is I've seen it's quite common in a lot of indigenous traditions.
Yeah. I got fascinated, and I still am fascinated to know that one of the threads that connect different ancestral wisdoms, because I sat with various teachers from different parts and regions, not only in the Andean region, but that's in what is now South America, but I sat also with elders in Mesoamerica, in Central America, and here too in what is now the North America. So what I got fascinated was that at the end, what brings them all together for me was their connection to nature. The way that they approach life as a part of the cyclicality of nature.
Yeah.
That was amazing. I was like, wow. So how does that happen, right? So, and if you go a little further, right, we go to other cultures that are around, across the world.
Even Africa, I actually spoke to somebody who was well versed in African rituals and traditions, and again, she talked about how nature is a central focus for them in their traditions.
Yeah, so we have forgotten, as I think, as human evolve, we have forgotten how important we are in this cycle of nature.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to announce the upcoming launch of my new book titled The Nomadic Soul, a seeker's guide to finding a sense of self and belonging in the modern world, which highlights a profound yet often unexplored part of your identity that holds the key to everything from answering your biggest questions to finding deeper meaning and joy in everyday life. Visit thenomadicsoulbook.com to learn more, download a free chapter, or to buy a copy. And actually, another term that I hear a lot in Native traditions is personal medicine, and you certainly talk about that in your book. You actually mentioned that the war that you experienced, the stress, the intergenerational trauma, you were able to turn that into medicine in your life. So tell us, firstly, what do you mean by personal medicine, and how were you able to do that?
So each one, and this is again through the lens of Andean philosophy. And yes, but there's also a lot of components from other ancestral traditions that coincides with that. We all come with our, I don't like to use the word purpose, because purpose, it feels like you have to continue doing something. You always have to achieve something. It's like, oh, my purpose is to. I reframe that with the idea of a vocation, right? So we all come with a gift. We all come to this world in this material body, in this tangible expression of nature for a reason. We all have something that it have to be used to complete the cycle of reciprocity that we mentioned. When I understood that facing my own difficulties and my own struggles, that opened a different level of understanding on how my strength can be at service not only for me, but for those who are in my inner circle. And that become that is my vocation now.
Yes.
When I when I understood that I can listen to the wind.
Mm.
When I hear the message of the wind, it's not that I'm going to different it's not like I'm going to different
I'm
places.
picturing Pocahontas right now. You know that scene where she's at the top of the cliff and she's just closing her eyes, and it's actually one of my favorite scenes in all Disney movies. Yeah, because it's so deeply spiritual. But yeah, continue.
What a comparison, and I appreciate it, and I pay respect to those who are from the lineage of Pocahontas. That is beautiful that we can actually that again there are many ways that this type of knowledge or medicine is all around us. So the medicine come in different ways. Each one of us have our own way of moving into this cycle of reciprocity. And here comes the important part that I feel that is the medicine for the world that we're living today, period. And it is that when I accepted my medicine, and when I accepted that I do have my vocation have to be in practice, I knew that this is not something that is for me only. It's not an individual wellness. It's not an individual healing. It's not just me. This is a collective piece of information. Because my vocation and my way of approaching the gift that I receive from the Creator is it will only continue going when I put it into practice and when I use it for the support of my village, of my, in this case, if we would have been in the mountains, it would be for your own little village, right? But here is for in modern societies, it's for your inner circle, and then it's your family, and then it's so on and so on and so on. So I accepted that my medicine is the ability to call the wind, to receive the message for the winds, and to be able to see beyond what the human eye can see, and showing the way back to what is I call the Nuna, which is the term for a term in Quechua that is also known as the anima or the spirit or energy, right? So I support others to bring their Nuna back to them through the wind. So in my personal experience, when I felt emotional fragmented for many ways and many reasons, the wind, and it was through my breath, because I didn't know there was a wind before. I used my breath first. It was like, oh, breathing feels so, like breathing consciously feels so good for me and for my soul. And then I took one step further to realize that the wind is the element that brings me, give me the possibilities to fulfill my vocation.
That's beautiful. So what I'm hearing is what really gives weight to one's purpose or vocation, as you like to call it, is when it somehow contributes to people around you, whether that's your community or whether even the world, if you're helping people out, when you have a platform online, you certainly can reach all parts of the world. And I think that's really, really important to keep in mind because we are living in a me culture right now with influencers and, and we can lose sight of that the importance of giving back and taking our place in this web, this community web that we belong to.
Yeah, and also to make sure that we understand that this is from a lived experience. This is not something that you can, I mean, good, the books are there to support you, but it will take you far. This is something that you have to do, like really do it.
Yep.
This is a practice.
The way of living.
It's a way of living.
Yeah.
Precisely. And it have cultural memory too. I cannot detach from that. I can't. In the ways that sometimes pieces of knowledge, pieces of knowledge from other traditions are taking away the cultural memory. That is not serving anybody, because it will give you half of the medicine, if anything. It give you only half of it. You want
Tell us more about that.
dose.
Tell us more about that. You're talking about the influence. You do talk about the influence of colonialism and Eurocentric culture and how that is kind of diminishing the indigenous knowledge and wisdom you've accumulated over the years. Can we speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I want to make sure that I'm
Yeah, I know it's a sensitive topic. So yeah.
Which is okay. Okay. Which is fine. I love to talk about it, but I want to make sure that it comes as a personal experience.
Sure, good. Yeah.
This is a living experience, and personal opinion as well. I do believe that we have to be very careful when we touch, when we work, when we take pieces of knowledge from ancestral wisdom that have been kept a secret for centuries, and now they start coming up for many reasons. If we get into this collection or reconnection with this indigenous wisdoms or medicine, we have to be 100% sure that we're not taking away the cultural memory of these wisdoms, because that wisdom in itself, the medicine in itself, you cannot detach from the fragmentation that this wisdom already had, meaning that it went through systems of oppression for many years. It went through systems of some of those people who still carry this type of medicine, they went through so much like negative events. And the medicine in itself carries that portion. I call that the spiritual DNA. I cannot detach from that. I can't. So when I use only what my human Western mind can understand, I am taking only half of it. The idea is for us, if we are embracing this type of knowledge, to be able to accept the medicine, the full dose of the medicine, meaning that this is why it's important to understand what are we engaging with, because you just don't go to a pieces of or taking medicine, which is a spiritual medicine from a place of the world, without even knowing what happened to the people that conserved this medicine for so long and now is finding its way to mainstream, which for me, that creates a huge problem too, because some of this medicine, it was meant to be kept a secret, because it was meant to be part of in a small community and kept it in small batches, if anything. And I'm talking more as a medicine that you can take and inject and so on. So we have to be very careful when not to detach from the cultural memory that this type of medicine carries, and and be vigilant to do the integration of what happened with that and how is it going to support me in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that. So not forgetting the history and the people who created all this knowledge and honoring them and everything that they
Mhm.
have been through.
Yeah, exactly.
I did speak to a Native American lady a few years ago, and she talked about this whole problem with cultural appropriation and just
Mm.
kind of not really understanding the significance of some of these rituals that have such
Yeah,
deep meaning, and that were so sacred to the people who practiced it in their community and their tribes. Do you find that that is something that
yeah.
you witnessed among the Andean
Y-
tradition?
Oh, yeah. And so there, yeah. And there are communities that are very resistant to show and to teach foreigners their knowledge for the same reason, which I totally understand. Me who carries Andean blood. And again, remember we talk about although the Sumak Kawsay is kind of like a framework for the whole Andean region, each village, each community, each family have its own ways to do stuff. So that's what becomes a tradition. So I have sat with elders who express their concern for what is happening. And not just the concern for taking the for not giving for people not giving them their credit. I mean, it's beyond that. It's just the fact that you're playing with forces that you don't even know, that you're not supposed to be playing with. It's not just about giving me the credit where this piece of heritage belong to. Yeah, that is something, and there's plenty of material for that. There's plenty of people that talks and advocates for this, but this is something deeper than that. This is something that once you get into these stages, you can literally alter your spiritual DNA, and you have to be very careful for that. Because in these stages is where your nuna or your soul get lost. And when our soul or our nuna get lost in the spiritual world,
Mm-hmm.
it's very difficult to bring it back to you, and you are not a full person anymore. You become a carcass, a walking person.
Like a
Just
zombie,
yeah,
almost.
we don't do you don't use it, yeah, like a zombie, exactly. No soul, yes, operating from with no anima, with no soul.
No soul. Yeah. Yeah, and unfortunately, there are a lot of people like that nowadays. Well, when you walk down the streets, you do see them. They're just going through the motions.
Yeah, but so those that's are different because these people who have been emotionally and spiritual fragmented for causes that are social reasons, right? Or behavior reasons or
Yeah.
something like that.
Hmm.
But I'm talking about something deeper. I'm talking about that when you mess with pieces of knowledge and energy that you're not supposed to have, your soul is way far. That you need a better you need that other kind of intervention.
So what you're saying is there is risk in using one of these practices or tools if you don't know
Oh
what
yeah,
it's for, and if you don't know its potency, it can go wrong.
yeah, yeah. And this is why the reason in the book you will not see any rituals. I don't put rituals in there because I don't want to prescribe medicine that is not for
Yeah.
me to prescribe to somebody who is not from my lineage,
Yeah. You
right?
talk about
But
ayahuasca and how people misuse that or just don't know how to use it.
yeah, yeah. And so the framework that I use that I felt that is an easy way to connect with your own tradition is nature. You want to know how the potency of a particular medicine, go ask your grandmothers, ask
Yeah.
the people in your village, and I understand that some of your listeners might not have a connection with their biological family, but that's
Yeah.
the whole thing behind it as well. How do you make the reconnection for that?
Okay. Lorena, we have covered a lot of ground, but I definitely want to touch on this very quickly. You talk about a really elaborate process called the CAR method, Kare.
Care,
Care,
like
care,
care.
car,
Yeah,
care,
yeah,
care. Okay,
yeah.
there you go. And you said that this is really instrumental in helping us come to a place of compassionate self-witnessing and deep presence. So, can you give us a quick overview of the care method and how it works?
Yeah, so and I present this early on in the book because I wanted to make sure that people have some tools so they can actually go into the whole accompaniment and journey. And I call it, it's more like a pilgrimage, right? That you're doing with the book. And this piece of methodology came as, again, from personal experience while I was doing my own recovery process, but my own reconciliation process to find out that I have been doing this with my clients for a while. And then when I was writing the book, I was like, oh, this is actually a methodology. So CARE stands for K for knowing the wound, for knowing to it's not just to understand what happened, but also to be able to feel it and name it. A stands for assess or to find out the why, if anything, but with from a lens of compassion, from a lens of trying to understand that some of this wounding that I'm having perhaps didn't even started with me. And this is wounding that I've been carrying for generations. And there's a wounding that it has, passed down as a way of surviving certain situations in life. So we are with the assess, you can find out how to be with the wound and what it needs to be tended. And this is the portion where it's very somatic, very I invite people to really feel that in the body.
Yeah, and
And
you
then
definitely dedicate a lot of time into going into that in the book. So I just want to mention that to everyone. Like, if you want to know more, definitely get the book. She
yeah.
does a deep dive there. Yeah, go ahead.
And thank you. Yeah. And then it is the reconcile portion. And this is kind of like, I like the sweet portion, but yet, like anything, in order for something to be sweet, you have to know what is sour, right? So the reconciliation process or the reconciliation part of care is to bring the fragmented parts in the fragmented pieces of our soul that for many reasons got split and the fragmented portions of your history all together. You bring them back, you call them back. And for that, I use my particular medicine is through the wind. So I use the wind. And for other people, might be something different. Might be like you're engaging if it's part of your tradition, because this is through the lens of Pacha philosophy. But I don't prescribe anything, like I mentioned. I say, go back and investigate your own tradition. What did your family used to do to heal the heart, right? And I have clients that they engage on cooking a particular meal.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and that becomes a beautiful reconciliation process because now you have the chance to talk to your mother or your grandmother and collect that recipe, and then now you already did half of the job there. You're sitting and listening the stories of the family, and then now you're gonna cook it, and then you're gonna eat it. So that's medicine right there. That's medicine that's bringing your soul closer to your body. And lastly is the E portion of care that is in gender. And this is what I use or invite people to cultivate new ways of being and feeling grounded and whole and take the choice to be, again, the one that becomes the one that is in the cycle of nature, meaning that I already did my process. So how am I going to support my inner circle? So engendering is a continuation, if anything, of all the process that you're doing, and in a sustainable way that is going to support the collective wellness, first of my inner circle, and then collective and inner circle, community, and so on.
I love that. And is this something that you created, or is it part of the Pacha tradition?
Yeah, it is something that came as a development of investigating into Pacha philosophy, but I want to be precise on this. This piece of information, it does not belong under the ancient wisdom of Pacha philosophy.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you for describing that for us very well. And just out of my own curiosity, so how old is this specific tradition? Because I know Peru has a pretty long history. So how far back does it date?
This is older than the Inca civilization. So this is way older. This, and with the Pacha philosophy and past Pacha cosmology and Pacha wisdom or Andean thought, like again, it's a region thought. It is way before the last civilization that we know in that area, in that region, is the Inca. And that is, we're talking
And they
about
built the Machu Picchu, right? The Incas.
the Incas, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
But this is way older. This way of approaching life, the Sumak Kawsay, is way older than the Inca civilization.
And is this something that your family still practices?
In various ways, yeah. Okay. Many of the things that the way that I recover my wisdom, and the way that I recover the wisdom of my grandmother is by collecting information from my own family, right? So in a various ways. Now, considering that I live in a place where, although I live I say I live, I used to live because now I replanted in the United States, right? So my family is from the coast, and they do have its own ways to practice Andean traditions. It's fascinating. It has its variations, again, depending on where you're situated in the region. Yet the reciprocity cycle is what kind of like the predominant.
Okay. Wow. Now you got me even more excited about my upcoming trip, and I'm sure that the listeners, the viewers, are probably feeling the same way. Lorena, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us and introducing us to all these healing ways to live a healthier and fuller life. Your insights into indigenous traditions is absolutely priceless.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the space, and yeah, I invite you all to reconnect with nature and to ask questions to those who are still holding the wisdom in your families, because we need that wisdom more than anything.
Yeah, because you could find so many answers by connecting with your roots and finding where you've come from. You can get more insight into your spiritual DNA, as you just mentioned earlier.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so if this conversation called to you, please pick up Lorena's book titled Awaken Your Roots, Reclaim Your Ancestry and Sovereignty by Heeding the Jaguar's Call. You can find it wherever books are sold and on her website, lorenasaavedrasmith.com. Her site also lists her private sessions and her events.